Trump plans AI profit share White House meeting. The meeting quietly ties any public payout to federal oversight of compute clusters. That clause alone could hand regulators kill switches on training runs exceeding certain thresholds. Smaller labs without lobbying arms will scramble to structure offshore entities before the terms solidify. Larger players like OpenAI now face a choice: accept diluted margins on government-adjacent contracts or accelerate their own lobbying for carve-outs that keep critical IP outside the agreement. Watch for the first such filing within 6 months. Anthropic urges coordinated pause option for AI. The call for a pause button sounds cooperative until you notice the verification mechanism requires shared inspection of every frontier run. That detail hands the first movers a veto over anyone else's scaling plans. Expect Google and OpenAI to counter with their own bilateral safety pacts that sidestep the global layer entirely within the next quarter. Labs skipping the pact could lock in a decisive lead before any enforcement catches up. DeepSeek nears $7.4 billion first external funding. The round size masks how much of the cap table now sits with state-linked suppliers who can guarantee silicon access. That structure gives DeepSeek a path around export rules that pure-play labs lack. NVIDIA will have to decide whether to lobby harder for license exceptions or write off the entire China training market by the end of next year. Any delay hands the next cycle to local alternatives. Generalist AI raises $400 million at $2 billion valuation. Embodied models still need 10 times more real-world data than the pitch deck admits. The new capital buys fleets of robots that can collect it, but only if the hardware partners stay patient through the first 3 generations of failures. Watch whether Boston Dynamics or Figure now accelerate their own raises to avoid being priced out of the same talent pool. Otherwise, the gap in training coverage becomes permanent by mid-2026. Time spotlights AI agents as next inflection. This forces Anthropic to either subsidize agent tiers or watch volume migrate. The shift lands hardest on inference budgets. Enterprises running 10,000 agents daily will burn through tokens at 10 times current rates, forcing procurement teams to renegotiate rate cards by Q4 next year. Smaller labs without their own silicon see margins collapse first. Coordination layers multiply API calls even when the final answer stays simple. That math turns today's usage forecasts obsolete inside 18 months. WSJ assesses realistic AI timeline to potential. Corporate spend rises, but procurement frameworks stretch every deployment to 24 months minimum. That lag turns the realistic timeline into a story about contract structures rather than model intelligence. Pilots deliver quick wins, yet enterprise SLAs force vendors to guarantee outcomes across multi-year cycles. Watch the consulting arms that sell integration services. Their margins expand precisely because the transformation refuses to hurry. Incumbents with entrenched procurement relationships gain at least 2 extra years to adapt their stacks before displacement pressure builds. AI investments drive inflation spillovers. Power contracts bid up electricity prices for every data center, AI-related or otherwise. Non-AI workloads absorb the same grid premium, lifting cloud instance costs across providers. Startups outside foundation model races see their monthly burn rates climb sharply despite completely flat usage. Service margins compress first, then hardware refresh budgets shrink. Expect 3-year cloud agreements to carry explicit inflation escalators by next quarter. OpenAI leads funding in Opal Electronics. Creator hardware margins just became a proxy battle for model distribution. Logitech now faces a direct choice between embedding rival agents or seeding the high-volume webcam segment to devices preloaded with OpenAI integrations. The pivot also locks early access to fine-tuning data from actual usage sessions. Early pilots already show 20% higher engagement when the camera ships with the model attached from the first unboxing. That data advantage compounds faster than any hardware spec improvement. Forbes releases 2026 AI 50 company list. Rankings by headline funding obscure how data licensing terms now decide competitive survival. The 2 leaders each exceed $25 billion in run rate, yet the list reveals a dozen firms whose models depend on those same giants for training data access. This forces every mid-tier entrant to either sell or sign restrictive clauses by mid-next year. Margins on inference alone cannot sustain independent roadmaps once the compute subsidies dry up. Platform deals will close before the next ranking. Multimodal AI shifts to enterprise workflows. The paid pilots already show 3 to 5 times higher retention when outputs feed directly into CRM systems. Procurement teams now tie payments to measured reductions in support ticket volume and cycle time. The shift exposes how current multimodal pricing underestimates the data flywheel created by each workflow integration. This forces OpenAI and its peers to either raise rates on high-volume customers or accept thinner margins to defend the beachhead. Second-order effects on data ownership remain absent from public filings. Edge AI becomes product necessity. Local inference requirements now appear in every RFP that touches customer data, even when latency claims look identical on paper. The margin lift comes from avoiding cloud egress fees and enabling on-device upsells that pure cloud players cannot match. This forces cloud providers to either subsidize edge hardware partnerships or lose the regulated verticals entirely within 18 months. Resilience claims alone will not justify the added silicon cost unless the privacy premium sticks in procurement. Synopsys launches agentic AI for chip design. Early adopters report verification loops shrinking by 20% before the first tape-out review. Chip design cycles that once took quarters now compress when natural language prompts replace manual RTL handoffs. The orchestrated agents expose bottlenecks in verification that single-model tools never reached. This forces Cadence to either replicate the multi-agent orchestration or watch its enterprise accounts migrate for the automation gains alone. Tape-out margins improve only if generated RTL error rates stay below manual baselines.